Hi guys, it's Fiona, and today I want to talk to you about how I... Oh, would you stop doing that? Okay. Mummy needs to just do some work, so I need you just to lie down there and settle down, okay? Settle down, okay? Lie down. Nothing's happening. My dog is crashing my videos so much today. What with the rain in the background and the dog moaning, I don't know how I'm ever going to record a video, but it's ironic that what I want to talk to you today about is motivation. How do you stay motivated throughout the day? How do you stay focused and on task, even with all the distractions that you've got in the world? Even if you've got a dog, you're trying to work from home, you're trying to record a video, and she keeps making noises. Bottom line, you want to perform at your best. So how do we do that? Now, people often ask me, how do I stay motivated throughout the day? And let's be honest, that's a bit variable sometimes, isn't it? Well, in fact, most of the time. I would say that even on days where I roll out of bed and feel excited to start my day, because maybe I've got a plan ahead, I've got something exciting I really want to work on, and I'm feeling pretty rested and ready to go, I don't always maintain that same level of momentum and motivation throughout the day. And yet there are things that I want to achieve. So how do we strike that balance? And is there anything that can help us to feel much more motivated and to get much more done within each day? And I think there's one really important principle that sits behind all of the tips and tricks and things that you can do during the day to maintain that level of momentum. And that principle is alignment. And what I mean by that is what you want to do in the day leading towards the things you want to accomplish in the world? I know that sounds really simple, but actually it is really important. Because the thing is, when we're really connected to our purpose and to what we know deep down in our soul that we want to bring into the world, then motivation isn't normally a big issue. So I think that's the number one underlying principle. Are you actually feeling aligned with the work that you're doing in the world? And if not, maybe it's time to review that. Is it really what you want? And is it taking you in the direction that you want to go in? And sometimes what was once a great vision for you, sometimes it changes, and that's because other things in your life change. Perhaps it's to do with relationships or family. Perhaps it's to do with a stage in your life. Perhaps it's to do with how you're developing personally. Often we just outgrow situations, we can even outgrow people and relationships. And that's why sometimes it's really helpful just to go back to the drawing board and see what is it that you really, really want to work on. One of the exercises that I do with my clients is what I call the perfect day exercise, where I get them to really visualize in as much detail as possible what their perfect day would look like if they were really connected to purpose, if they were living and doing the work that they're meant to do in the world every day, day in, day out, and felt really, really excited by it, really passionate about it. If they visualized their perfect day in that context, exactly what would they be doing at 6 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, at 10 o'clock, at lunchtime, in the afternoon, in the evening? Who would they be spending time with? What would they be doing exactly during the day? And the starting point for that exercise is to decide, what do you really want? And how often do you stop and ask yourself that? Maybe you know exactly what it is you'd like to be working on, and you haven't fully given yourself permission to work on that. Possibly because you've got something else that you really need to do, and it would feel really irresponsible to not do that. So to have that sacrificed at the expense of working on that thing that you really want to bring into the world, that thing that perhaps there isn't an immediate payoff, perhaps you really will need to put some work in to make it happen, and you can't see that immediate return or reward. I know that's definitely been something that I've had to work on over the last few years, where I've been building the online side of my business, because honestly there wasn't really an immediate return. It was an awful lot of work to set up and to keep going and to have that consistency. And really at the beginning I was getting no feedback. There were literally no clients coming from it. There was hardly any engagement on any of my social media posts. I was putting out content all the time and getting hardly anything back from it. And of course, yeah, you know, people watch videos and they read posts and they don't necessarily comment on them. But to get no feedback is quite tough on your motivation. And actually, as I've gone on, I've realised that that motivation has to come from an internal place. It has to come from inside of me. I've realised after a while that I'd have to get comfortable being in that place of having no feedback, and yet still just being immersed in the work and the doing of the work and the creating of the content, and just to let it be what it was. And I think that's where being really aligned and on purpose with the work that you're doing in the world is so important, because that's what helps give you that internal drive and motivation and desire to do it. Because being immersed in the work, you're just in love with the work. And in a way, the work itself is its own reward. So I'd say that's my number one tip when it comes to how do I stay motivated during the day. And in fact, I think it's so important that if you're always looking for things that you can do during the day to keep your motivation up, it's probably a message to you that there's something that needs looking at there. So for me, I have a mindset routine each day. I do journaling and I do meditation, and I find both of those things really, really helpful. I think the main purpose of those really is to make sure that I am connected with what I believe is my purpose in the world. So that everything I then do from then onwards during the day is from that purpose. But I think sometimes you can just get off track. Sometimes it's a conversation with someone, sometimes it's a misunderstanding, or maybe sometimes it's just that you're a bit tired, you haven't eaten, you're just feeling a little bit under the weather. But to me, the opposite of needing motivation is flow, just being in flow. So you know what it's like if you're working on something, or if you're just talking to an old friend and things are just flowing, and you don't even have to think about what you're saying, you don't need to think about what you're doing. You're just in flow, you're just in the moment. You might be doing a negotiation if that's your kind of thing, or you might be making a sale or doing something in your business that's just like second nature to you and you really enjoy doing it. And you just do it without thinking, you do it subconsciously almost. I know I can find this sometimes with my writing. Sometimes I just get into it and there's just a flow and there's absolutely nothing that will stop those words coming out on the page. But other times I don't feel that creative flow, and so I need to do something to get into it. And often that means for me going back to purpose, going back to what am I connecting with? Am I giving myself everything I need to feel at peace, to feel creative, to feel supported, to feel cared for? It's like planting something in really good soil and then watering it. It's, to me, mindset work and making sure that your environment is set up for success is part of the creation of the success. And when you are focused on that one thing in the world, which is your thing to give, and if you are fully giving yourself permission to work on that and only that, and if you do have all of those other things in place as well, then that's when you start to feel really in the flow. And quite honestly, it'll then be obvious what's bringing you down. It'll be obvious if there's something that's not right in your environment. It'll be obvious if perhaps you're feeling some sort of guilt around, I really should be doing that other thing. There's something you just really don't want to do. And of course, you can always make decisions around those things as well. You can always outsource them, get some help on board. I think often we sit with tasks that we really just don't need to do in our businesses. And yet we do continue to do them because we don't stop ourselves in that moment and say, how can we do it differently? And the more you do give yourself permission and the more you do connect back into your purpose, the more you'll be able to measure up those situations and recognize when you need to take some action on something or make some sort of change. So maybe ask yourself, if I was completely in flow right now, what's the one thing I would be working on? What is that one thing that your soul knows deep down that's what you should be working on? If you felt no guilt whatsoever, if you felt no responsibility whatsoever, and you could just fully back yourself to do that one thing, I bet you know what it is. And if you're not doing that, or if perhaps you're not doing enough of that for you to feel really, really good and that you're connected and you are serving out your purpose in the world, then maybe that is the missing piece for your motivation. And I'd love to know what that thing is for you, so do let me know in the comments. It really is worth spending the time to get to the bottom of this. Ultimately, we do only have that one life to live, and I know it's really cheesy to say that, but it is true. And I think the older I get, the more I realise that actually I just really want to make the most of every day and every hour. And it's not to say I'm going to heap a load of pressure on myself to do that either. But I just think I just really want to spend more of my time just doing what I want to do. And I think I'm realising that the more I say no to the things I don't want to do and yes to the things that I do want to do, the more inflow I'm feeling and the less I need to rely on anything to actually artificially raise my motivation. And so think about that for yourself. I hope you find it useful, and do let me know what comes up for you. Take care, guys, and I'll speak with you soon.